A snowstorm howled across the endless white desert of Alaska as the transmission came through, an untraceable frequency that interrupted every satellite and radar in the hemisphere. Inside the Pentagon, experts called it a natural glitch, but the distortion in the signal carried a heartbeat and a whisper that said someone's name, Ilera. Within hours, a Black Ops transport flew Dr. Ilera Hayes and a small unit of soldiers to Polaris 6, the U.S. base that sent the signal. When they arrived, the compound stood silent, buried under sheets of ice and silence. Frost-covered windows. Equipment flickered weakly. Ilera stepped into the command center, where computers ran themselves with no human touch. The radio sparked to life, and a distorted voice echoed through the speakers, calm and familiar, repeating over and over, "Welcome back, Ilera, we've missed you." The soldiers exchanged uneasy looks as the lights dimmed, and something unseen shifted in the dark corners of the room. Ilera's breath trembled in the cold air. The voice on the intercom now sounded like hers, exactly hers, speaking words she hadn't said. The sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, though no one was there. That was when she realized the base was waiting for her return. They explored the corridors of Polaris 6, their flashlights cutting through the dense fog of frozen breath. Every wall carried claw-like scratches, and every door led to silence. Then they reached the main hall and stopped. Bodies, dozens of them, stood frozen in place. Soldiers, scientists, even a cook still holding a spatula, locked mid-motion as if time had stopped. Their skin was pale blue, their eyes wide open, reflecting a faint shimmer of light. One of the soldiers whispered a prayer, but the sound seemed to echo back from the corpses themselves. When the lights flickered, Ilera heard it clearly, a whisper from the dead. It wasn't imagination. The frozen mouths were moving, uttering her name in unison. Her radio crackled with static, and in that static came a recording of her own voice saying, "Don't wake them." The air grew colder, heavy with something ancient. One of the corpses turned its head slowly, its eyes now black as oil, and spoke in her exact tone, "You shouldn't have come back." The soldier screamed, but no one could tell which voice was human anymore. Down in the lower tunnels, beneath layers of reinforced steel and ice, they found a sealed laboratory untouched for years. The locks had melted into the walls, and the temperature dropped to unbearable levels. Inside, a colossal chamber glowed faintly blue. In the center stood a containment block of pure ice, taller than any man, with something dark suspended inside, an organism unlike anything seen before. It pulsed rhythmically, as if it had a heart. Wires from old computers were embedded into the ice, feeding it energy. A recording on an old terminal identified it as Project Colony. Ilera's trembling fingers brushed the frost on the screen. The data log ended abruptly with the words, "It's learning to copy." Suddenly, a loud cracking noise echoed through the chamber. The ice began to fracture, hairline veins spreading across its surface like lightning. The pulse quickened. The temperature rose. Lights flickered and alarms screamed. As Ilera turned to flee, the last thing she saw was something inside the ice slowly opening its eyes. The power died, and the chamber went black. The next morning, the surviving members of the team began acting strangely. They forgot details, simple things like their names, the time, or how long they'd been on base. Their reflections lagged behind their movements. Skin turned slightly translucent under flashlight beams, veins darkening into branching patterns. The communication systems came alive again, transmitting random coordinates into deep space. Ilera tried to disable the console, but the screen displayed her face instead of the command prompt, smiling without her control. She recorded a log describing symptoms of infection through light exposure. "It's not a virus," she said, trembling. "It's rewriting us." Hours later, the team's medic locked herself inside the infirmary, leaving a final message on the security feed. "I can feel it thinking inside my head. I'm not me anymore." When Ilera opened the door, the medic was gone, leaving only her uniform neatly folded on the bed and a faint trail of black fluid leading toward the vent. Night fell, though the sun hadn't truly set. One by one, the team members disappeared. The commander's bunk was empty, yet his voice echoed through the halls, reciting names of the dead. Surveillance footage revealed the truth. Each missing person had returned, but changed. Their movements were perfect imitations, but their eyes were not human, deep black and reflecting light like mirrors. The copies behaved normally, answering questions, eating rations, even laughing. But when viewed through infrared, their bodies emitted no heat. Alara tested one, asking a question only the real commander could answer. The copy smiled and said the right words, but a second later, the real commander's voice came through the intercom, begging for help from somewhere underground. The reflection of the copy in the window turned toward Alara, smiled wider than any human mouth should, and whispered, "We're learning faster now." Alara finally cracked the alien code pulsing from the signal. It wasn't random, it was organized data, a pattern of consciousness transferring between systems. The alien presence wasn't invading, it was recruiting. Humanity wasn't the target, it was the vessel. She found old experiment logs revealing she'd once been stationed at Polaris 6 as a research assistant. Her memory had been erased. The experiment was never terminated. She was part of it. The entity had been calling her back to finish what began years ago. Every file confirmed her DNA signature linked to Colony Prototype Alpha. In horror, she realized she was the key. The voice over the intercom spoke softly now, her mother's tone saying, "You were chosen, Alara." As she stared at her trembling hands, thin black lines crawled beneath her skin. She wasn't being infected, she was reawakening. The power surged across the base, lighting every corridor at once. The ground trembled as walls began to hum. The alien colony had grown, spreading through cables, systems, and even the air. The survivors attempted to detonate the emergency charge to destroy the base, but it was too late. The structure responded like a living thing. Metal bent, wires twitched, and vents exhaled steam that whispered words. Alara saw the floor ripple beneath her feet like water. She screamed orders, but her voice layered over itself in strange echoes. The base wasn't holding them, it was feeding on them. Outside, the aurora borealis shimmered brighter than ever, its green light pulsing in sync with the colony's heartbeat. Alara tried to broadcast a warning to command, but her voice was replaced mid-transmission by her mother's, saying, "Join us, Alara. You were never human." The console exploded in a burst of static. When the final transmission from Polaris 6 reached the mainland, it showed a perfect tableau. Every surviving crew member standing still, smiling unnaturally, their eyes now pure black crystal. Alara stood in front, calm and emotionless, speaking in a tone that was both human and alien. "We are awake." Then the feed cut to static, replaced by a signal that spread through every satellite and frequency on Earth. Hours later, global reports of flickering lights, malfunctioning electronics, and voices whispering through devices flooded in. When authorities reached Polaris 6, the base was empty. Every computer was wiped, yet the alien pulse continued broadcasting from multiple continents. The final decoded message repeated endlessly, chilling and clear. "Midnight Colony confirmed. Humanity is offline."